Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Today, we are looking at something that is so pervasive, so fundamental to our existence that it has effectively become invisible.
Right.
We live inside it, we work inside it, we shop inside it. But we almost never stop to consider the operating system that keeps it from collapsing into chaos. I'm talking about the built world.
It's the invisible engine of our daily lives. That's a perfect way to put it.
Exactly. We tend to think of buildings as just, well, static objects, walls, a roof, maybe a lobby with a nice plant.
Sure.
But when you really dig into the sources we have today, you realize a building is more like a living organism. And the brain keeping that organism alive, that is property management.
And this is so important because I think a lot of people are already, their eyes are glazing over. They're thinking about leaky faucets.
Right. And before you reach for the skip button because you think we're going to spend an hour talking about unclogging toilets or collecting rent checks, stop. Please stop. Because if that is your mental model, you are missing the entire economic reality of the world that is literally all around you.
Right. I want to start with the sheer scale of this. Real estate is the single largest asset class in the world.
By a huge margin.
We were talking about hundreds of trillions of dollars in value globally. And the people we are discussing today, property managers, they are the stewards of that value. They are the difference between a building being a cash cow and a money pit.
A complete disaster. And that's really the mission for this deep dive, isn't it? We need to peel back the layers.
We do.
We are going to move way, way beyond the stereotype of the super with the heavy keychain and maybe a bad attitude. We are looking at a profession that sits right at the intersection of high finance, complex law, structural engineering, and frankly, behavioral psychology.
It's a sophisticated machine.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the source material we have today, which is pretty comprehensive, it covers everything from global regulatory frameworks to the PropTech explosion. It's clear that this industry is going through a massive identity crisis.
It is. It's shifting from maintenance, which is reactive, to management, which is proactive. And that distinction, that simple word change, it matters a whole lot.
So let's start with the core concept, the absolute definition. In the simplest terms, what are we actually talking about here?
Okay, so at its base level, property management is the operation, control, and oversight of real estate. Simple enough.
Operation, control, oversight. That sounds pretty broad.
It is, and that applies to everything from a single-family home you rent out to a massive industrial warehouse, a shopping mall, or even public infrastructure.
Right.
But the definition in our sources adds a critical nuance that, for me, changes everything. It is the accountability for the useful life of the asset.
Useful life. I like that phrase. That creates a very different mental image than, say, rent collection.
Exactly. This is life cycle management. A property manager isn't just solving problems for today. They aren't just putting a bucket under the leak. They are making decisions to ensure the building is still standing, that it's functional, and most importantly, profitable 20, 30, even 40 years from now.
So if I own a skyscraper, I'm not just hiring a manager to fill vacancies. I'm really hiring an asset manager.
Precisely. And that's a distinction the industry itself is trying very hard to make. Asset management sounds like Wall Street, right? It sounds serious.
It does.
But that's what this is. The property manager is the operational backbone, and they walk a very, very tightrope. On one side, they have the owner's financial interests maximize profit, minimize costs.
The bottom line.
The bottom line. And on the other side, they have the tenant's satisfaction and, their safety.
And those two things are often in direct conflict.
Constantly. I mean, think about it. The owner wants to spend $0 on a new roof. The tenant, understandably, wants a roof that doesn't leak.
A pretty basic request.
A very basic request. The manager is the fulcrum. They're in the middle. They have to convince the owner that spending the money now saves the asset's value later. They have to translate physical repair into return on investment.
It's a multidisciplinary balancing act. And to really understand how hard that is, the sources break the job down into what they call the 6 pillars of responsibility. And when I saw this list, my first thought was, how does one person do all of this?
Usually they don't. In large assets, it's absolutely a team. But let's walk through them, because each pillar is essentially a career in and of itself.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with pillar number 1. This is the one we all interact with. The human element. Tenant relations.
This is the face of the franchise. The manager is the intermediary. They are the buffer.
The human shield.
Sometimes, yes, I think that's fair. They stand between the owner and the tenant, and the cycle is exhaustive. It starts with marketing and inquiries, but the really critical part, the first gate, is the screening. Let's pause on screening for a second. Because this isn't just, do they have a job? This is a deep risk assessment.
It's financial and behavioral risk assessment. Can they pay? That's the first question. Will they destroy the unit? That's the second. And maybe just as important, will they annoy the neighbors to the point that other good-paying tenants leave?
That's a huge one. One bad apple can spoil the whole building.
Absolutely. You are trying to predict the future behavior of a complete stranger based on, what, a credit score and maybe a reference check from their last landlord who might just be trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, that reference could be totally bogus. So if you get it wrong, you are stuck with them. And we'll get to evictions later, I'm sure. But preventing a bad tenant is infinitely cheaper and easier than removing one.
100%. And the tenant relations pillar continues through the entire lease. It includes handling complaints, negotiating renewals, and then the move-out inspection.
Right.
But there was a specific detail in the notes that I loved because it's so overlooked. It mentioned mailroom operations. Yes, I flagged that too. It's so true. In my head, the mail it arrives, it appears, it's magic.
In a single-family home, sure, the mail carrier puts it in the box. But imagine a 50-story residential tower in downtown Chicago, or a massive commercial office complex.
You don't have one mailbox.
You have thousands of packages arriving daily.
Especially now. It's not just letters anymore, not by a long shot.
No, it's Amazon boxes, it's grocery deliveries from Instacart, it's perishable food from meal kits, it's confidential legal documents, medical supplies. The sheer volume is staggering.
So if that system fails, if the mailroom is chaotic, the building essentially stops working for the people living there. It's a core utility now.
It creates complete chaos. The management company is effectively running a private logistics hub or small post office right there in the lobby. They have to log custody of items, secure them, notify tenants, and handle the liability if something goes missing.
Oh, the liability is huge.
Imagine if a manager loses a tenant's critical medication or a signed multi-million-dollar contract that was delivered. That is a massive, massive problem.
So mailroom operations is a critical, often completely overlooked subcomponent of that tenant relations pillar. It's not just being nice, it's hard logistics.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, that's fascinating. Moving on to pillar 2, financial stewardship. This is where that asset management title really earns its keep.
Right. So on the surface, this is rent collection. Enforcing payment terms, sending the scary-looking letters when people are late.
The part everyone thinks of.
The part everyone thinks of. But deep down, it's about reporting and strategy.
It's the difference between balancing a checkbook and running a profit and loss statement for a major corporation.
That's it exactly. Think about who owns these big buildings. It's often not an individual. It's institutional investors, pension funds, REITs, insurance companies.
Right, they have boards and shareholders to answer to.
Precisely. They need sophisticated financial reporting. They need budgets projected out for years. They need variance analysis.
Variance analysis, can you break that down?
Sure. That's when the manager has to explain, line by line on a spreadsheet, why did we spend 10% more on electricity this month than we budgeted? Or why are maintenance costs up 5% quarter over quarter? The manager has to answer those questions with cold, hard data. It's not a guess.
Wow. Okay. And then there's the compliance aspect of finance, specifically security deposits.
You called it the third rail of property management, and it absolutely is.
Explain that. Why is it so dangerous?
Because it's not the owner's money.
Right.
And it's not the manager's money. It is the tenant's money held in trust. There are incredibly strict state and local regulations on how that money is held. Often it must be in a separate interest-bearing escrow account. You absolutely cannot commingle it with operating funds.
So if the manager's a little short on cash and uses the security deposit to pay the electric bill, thinking, oh, I'll just put it back next week when rents come in.
That is theft. That is piercing the corporate veil. In many places, you can lose your license and potentially go to jail. It happens more often than you'd think in smaller, more amateur operations where cash flow gets tight.
So a professional manager knows you never, ever touch the deposit.
You build a firewall around it.
Yeah.
It's sacrosanct.
Okay. Which segues us perfectly into pillar 3, maintenance and repairs. The physical element of the building.
Right. This is the leaky faucet pillar. But again, the sources draw a really important distinction between repairs and facilities management.
I have to admit, I've always used those terms interchangeably. What is the technical difference?
It's all about scope and strategy. Repairs are reactive. A pipe bursts, you call a plumber to fix it. A window breaks, you call a glazier to replace it. That is maintenance.
Got it. Problem solution.
Exactly. Facilities management, or FM, is a specialized professional discipline. It focuses on the coordination of space, infrastructure, people, and the organization itself. It's much more holistic.
Give me a practical example.
Okay, a repair is fixing the air conditioner because it stopped blowing cold air in one office.
Right.
Facilities management is analyzing the airflow and temperature zones of the entire building to ensure employee productivity is maximized and energy waste is minimized. It's asking, does this physical environment support the core mission of the people inside it?
So FM is strategic. It's about optimizing the entire machine, not just fixing one broken gear.
Yes. And then, as a subdiscipline within that, you have building services engineering. This is the hard science. We're talking about indoor air quality, carbon footprints, avoiding sick building syndrome.
Sick building syndrome, is that a real thing?
Oh, it's a very real term. It's where the ventilation is so poor or the building materials off-gas so many chemicals that the building itself actually makes the occupants ill. We're talking chronic headaches, respiratory issues, fatigue.
Wow.
A property manager is legally responsible for ensuring habitability standards.
So it's not just is it comfortable, it's is it actively poisoning people?
Exactly. And if they fail at building services engineering, the building is legally unrentable. It's a liability minefield of the highest order.
Which brings us perfectly to Pillar 4, legal and regulatory compliance.
The minefield gets bigger.
I was reading through the list of legal areas a manager needs to know, and it's staggering. Housing laws, fair housing rules, zoning ordinances, contract law.
It's overwhelming. Let's just talk about fair housing for a second. In the U.S., you cannot discriminate based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, or disability.
Okay, that seems straightforward enough.
It seems straightforward, but this gets very nuanced very fast. For instance, if your marketing advertisement for a one-bedroom apartment says perfect for young professionals, you might have just violated the law.
Really? Just by saying young professionals? How?
No. It's a practice called steering. It implies that you don't want families with children or perhaps older retirees. A manager has to be incredibly versed in these regulations to avoid getting the owner sued into oblivion for an innocent-sounding ad. That's a tiny detail that could cost millions.
Absolutely. And then there is the ugly side of this pillar, evictions. The nuclear option. It's the last resort.
The source material mentions representing owners in legal proceedings. So the property manager is effectively acting as a paralegal or even a lawyer half the time.
In many jurisdictions, they are the ones who execute the process. They serve the legal notices. They file the paperwork with the court. And it is an adversarial, emotional, and highly, highly regulated process. You miss one deadline by a day or you fill out one form wrong, and the judge can just throw the case out.
And meanwhile,
the tenant is living there for free for another 2 or 3 months while you have to restart the entire process from scratch.
that's a massive financial risk for the owner.
It is. And that's one of the key reasons professional management is often worth the fee. They know the procedural law. They have the systems in place to get it done correctly the first time.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to Pillar 5, marketing and leasing.
Or, as I like to call it, vacancy management. This seems more straightforward than the legal pillar.
Yeah.
Put it on Zillow, put a sign in the yard.
It seems straightforward until you realize that every single day a unit sits empty, it is a wasting asset. It's like fruit rotting on a shelf.
Yeah.
You can never, ever get that day of rent back.
Good point.
So the manager has to set the rental rate, and that is both an art and a science.
Mostly science now, I'm guessing?
Mostly science now, which we will definitely get to in the tech section. But the core concept is market pricing. If you price it just $100 too high, it could sit for 2 months.
Right.
Well, you've lost, say, $4,000 in rent because you were trying to get an extra $100 a month. It would take you 40 months, almost 4 years, just to break even on that one mistake.
The math rarely works out when you get greedy.
Exactly. The manager has to understand absorption rates. How fast is the market eating up available supply? If there are 10 other similar apartments available on the block, you have to price aggressively to be the first one rented.
And finally, Pillar 6. The glue holding it all together. Administrative duties.
The paperwork. The endless paperwork. Records. Insurance coordination. Vendor communication.
Insurance is huge.
Yeah.
That can't be understated.
It's massive. Slip and falls, fires, floods. The manager is the one ensuring the policies are current, that the coverage is adequate, and that when an incident happens, it is documented correctly so the insurance company actually pays out.
Right.
If you don't have a record of when the snow was shoveled and the ice was salted and someone slips on the front step and breaks their leg, the insurance company might deny the claim, leaving the owner on the hook.
So, okay, we have this absolutely massive job description. I mean, it's 6 different careers rolled into one person or one team. The logical next question is, why would anyone do this? Or rather, how do they get paid enough to make it worth the headache?
The business models, and this is where the incentives get really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I assumed it was just, I'll pay you a fee. Simple. But the sources lay out 5 completely different structures.
Yeah.
And the incentives and the psychology, they change completely with each one.
They do. Let's look at Model A, the traditional model, the one most people know, percentage of rent.
How does the math work on that one?
This is the standard for residential, for sure. The manager takes a cut of the collected rental income. The source puts it typically between 8% and 12%.
Okay, so on a $2,000 apartment, the manager gets, say, $200 a month.
Correct. When the rent is paid.
What I like about this, and what the sources point out, is the alignment of incentives.
It's skin in the game. If the unit is empty, the rent is 0. The manager gets 10% of 0.
Which is 0.
So they are highly, highly motivated to find a tenant. And if the tenant doesn't pay, the manager doesn't get paid. Their income is directly tied to the owner's income.
It's a great model for occupancy. But here's the counter-argument I thought of. What about repairs? If the manager gets paid based on revenue, but managing a complex repair takes a lot of time and generates no extra revenue for them.
You found the fundamental flaw. In a strict percentage model, the manager is incentivized to maximize income, but they aren't necessarily incentivized to handle the heavy lifting of complex maintenance projects.
Unless they can charge for it separately.
Exactly. And that's where you get the markups. Often, managers will charge, say, a 10% supervision fee on large repairs, which, you have to admit, creates a bit of a perverse incentive.
How so?
Well, they might actually want expensive repairs because they get a cut of the plumber's or the roofer's bill.
It's tricky. You have to really watch the fine print in the management agreement. Now, what about high-end properties? If I have a luxury penthouse renting for $20,000 a month, paying a manager $2,000 seems steep. It's the same amount of work as a $2,000 unit, probably.
And that is exactly why Model B exists, the flat fee or fixed fee model.
Just a set monthly price, no percentages.
Exactly. Maybe it's $150 a month or $500 a month, regardless of the rental income. This is for the luxury market or for large-scale investors who need predictable costs for their financial models. They don't want their management fee fluctuating.
The source also mentioned this is popular for a different kind of owner. Vacant home management.
Right. For vacation homes, think of the ski chalet in Aspen that you don't rent out, or the beach house in Florida. You still need someone to go in once a week, flush the toilets, check the roof, make sure the pipes haven't burst in a freeze.
You're not paying for rental management. You're paying for peace of mind.
That's all it is. It's a flat fee for peace of mind inspections.
Okay, now, Model C is listed in the sources as the trend. This is the one that's growing, the hybrid model.
This is a really smart model for the management companies. It creates a floor for their revenue. It's typically a lower percentage of rent, say 6%, plus a flat administrative fee, say $50 a month.
Why the shift? Why is this becoming so popular?
It protects the management company from market shocks. Think about 2008, or even during the height of the COVID pandemic. Rents dropped, or people stopped paying altogether. If your company is 100% reliant on a percentage of rent, your business might go bankrupt through no fault of your own.
But the flat fee is guaranteed.
The flat fee covers the lights, the software costs, and the staff salaries. It stabilizes the industry and ensures they can keep operating even when the market gets rocky.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Model D is the one that sounded the most like Wall Street to me. Guaranteed rent.
Master leasing, or more bluntly, arbitrage.
Explain the mechanics of this one. It's really interesting.
The management company comes to you, the owner. They say, look, I will sign a lease with you. I will pay you $1,500 a month for this apartment, guaranteed, every month. Whether it's empty or full, the check will be in the mail on the 1st.
As an owner, I love that. It's zero risk, predictable income.
Zero risk, but you are absolutely paying for that security because the true market rent for that unit is probably $2,000. The company takes the lease from you, then turns around and sublets it for the full market price. They keep the $500 spread. That's their profit.
So they are betting on their ability to beat the market, to keep it occupied at a higher rate.
Correct. They are taking on all of the vacancy risk. If they can't fill it, they still have to pay you. and they lose money. This is very, very common in corporate housing and in the short-term rental world, like with Airbnb management companies.
Fascinating. Finally, Model E. This one is a whole different beast. The commercial-specific percentage lease.
Yeah, this is unique to retail. Think shopping malls, lifestyle
It's
centers.
not just rent, it's more like a partnership, right?
It is. It's a true partnership. The tenant, say a clothing store, pays a base rent. It's usually a bit lower than the market rate, but then if their gross sales go above a certain number, a figure called the break point, the landlord gets a percentage of every single dollar sold after that.
So the landlord is actually looking at the store's revenue. They're in their books.
They audit the sales tapes. The philosophy is the landlord provides the ecosystem, the foot traffic, the clean floors, the security guards, the beautiful fountain in the middle of the mall.
The
The
experience.
whole experience. If that ecosystem helps the store sell more t-shirts, the landlord should share in that upside.
It aligns incentives perfectly. If the mall becomes a ghost town, the landlord's rent drops to the low base amount. If the mall is booming, everyone wins.
It's a fascinating dynamic that doesn't really exist in residential housing.
We'll come back to that idea in the outro because I think that's a really interesting thread to pull on. But for now, I want to pivot to the tools. Because you can't manage thousands of units with a yellow legal pad and a flip phone anymore.
The PropTech revolution, property technology.
The numbers are just huge. The property management software market alone was around $5.5 billion in 2023, and is projected to nearly double to almost $10 billion by 2030.
That's a massive amount of investment.
So what are we buying with $10 billion?
Efficiency and data. First, you have the core systems, the PMS, property management systems. You've got these giants in the industry like Yardi, AppFolio, RealPage. These are the cloud-based operating systems. They handle the financial ledger, the leasing workflow, the maintenance tickets. It's the digital backbone.
But that's just, digitization of old processes. The really cool stuff is the emerging tech.
AI and IoT, artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things.
Let's talk about IoT first, the sensors.
This is the game changer. This is the fundamental shift from reactive to predictive maintenance.
Give me a real-world scenario.
Okay, old world. The water heater in apartment 4B rusts out at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. The tenant wakes up to a flooded apartment. They make a frantic, angry emergency call to the manager.
The worst call to get.
The absolute worst. You have to call an emergency plumber at emergency rates, which are like $500 an hour. The tenant is furious, the floorboards are ruined, an insurance claim has to be filed. It's a nightmare for everyone.
An expensive nightmare.
A very expensive nightmare. Now the new world. A $50 moisture sensor and a smart vibration sensor are attached to that same water heater. The sensor detects a microscopic leak or a change in the machine's vibration frequency that indicates a part is about to fail. It sends an automatic alert to the manager's dashboard on a Tuesday at 2 p.m.
Heater 4B is acting up. Performance has dropped 8%.
Exactly. The manager sends a regular plumber at normal, non-emergency rates. They go in, they swap out the failing part for $100. The tenant never even knows there was a problem. No flood, no angry call, no insurance claim.
That is a massive, massive value add. It completely changes the nature of the job from putting out fires to preventing fires.
And then you layer on top of that AI.
So this is where it gets into algorithmic pricing.
Yes, this is controversial in some circles, but incredibly powerful. AI systems analyze real-time market demand. The system knows that 3 different people looked at this specific unit online in the last hour, and that a competitor building down the street just raised their price by $50. It adjusts your rent instantly to maximize revenue.
It's dynamic pricing, just like for airlines or hotels.
Exactly. It removes the gut feeling of the manager and replaces it with cold, hard, real-time data. It can mean tens of thousands of dollars in extra revenue for a building owner over a year.
Okay, so we have incredibly high stakes. We have these complex, multidisciplinary duties, huge amounts of money flowing through the system, and advanced technology. You would assume that to do this job, you would need, a PhD, or at the very least, a very specific, hard-to-get government license.
You would absolutely assume that. It seems logical.
But then we enter Section 4 of our sources, the Wild West of regulation.
This was without a doubt the most shocking part of the research for me. The rules are completely and totally incoherent globally. It's a patchwork quilt with huge holes in it.
Let's start with the U.S. From the outside, it seems fairly locked down.
Generally, yes. In most of the major states, New York, California, Florida, Colorado, property management is considered a real estate activity.
Which means what, exactly?
Yeah. It means to legally collect rent or negotiate leases for other people, you must hold a state-issued real estate broker's license, the very same license as the person who sells multi-million-dollar houses.
Which is not easy to get.
Yeah.
It means you have to take dozens of hours of classes, pass a difficult state exam, and usually work under an established broker for a few years as an apprentice.
Yes. It's a significant barrier to entry designed to ensure a baseline of competency and consumer protection. But then you look at states like Idaho, Maine, or Vermont.
What happens there?
According to the source, there's no license required. Nothing. You can wake up tomorrow morning, put in a business card that says property manager, and start collecting rent checks and holding security deposits for your neighbors.
That is genuinely terrifying.
It creates a huge variation in quality and professionalism. And then you have states that are in the middle, like Montana or Oregon, that have a specific, separate property management license that's not a full broker's license, but is still a regulated credential.
And the sources pointed out a very specific nuance in California law, the one about the resident manager.
Yes, the number 16. It's famous in the industry.
Explain it.
If an apartment building has 16 or more units, California law requires a responsible person, a manager, a janitor, someone to live on site.
So as the owner, you have to give up a revenue-generating unit to house a manager.
Effectively, yes. Or at least have them live there, often at reduced or no rent. It completely changes the economics of a 15-unit building versus a 16-unit building, and you literally see developers building 15-unit complexes just to avoid triggering this specific rule.
Wow. Now let's cross the Atlantic, the United Kingdom.
The contrast is absolutely stark. In the UK, a global financial hub, there is no statutory regulation for property management companies.
London, one of the most complex and expensive real estate markets on earth.
Unregulated. Now, there is a safety net. If you handle what are called assured short-hold tenancies, you must join a government-approved tenancy deposit scheme to protect the tenant's cash, so the deposit is safe.
But the act of management itself.
The act of management hiring contractors, inspecting units, charging fees, setting service charges, requires no government license at all.
Why? What's the history behind that?
It's largely historical. The concept of estate management was something the landed gentry just did. It was part of owning land. It wasn't seen as a separate commercial trade requiring state oversight in the same way as, say, being a lawyer or a doctor. But it leads to massive inconsistency in service quality.
And what about down under? Australia and New Zealand?
It's a mixed bag, which is also strange. Australia is very strict. It's regulated as a real estate activity in every state. But New Zealand has this bizarre split system.
What's the split?
If you're a commercial leasing agent managing a shopping mall or an office tower, you need a license and you need to have your trust accounts audited every year.
Okay, sounds reasonable.
But if you manage residential property, it is currently an unlicensed and unregulated industry.
That makes absolutely no sense. Managing a shopping mall requires a license, but managing the home where a family sleeps doesn't.
In New Zealand, currently that is the case. And it's a major point of political debate there, as you can imagine. There are constant calls for reform.
We see this patchwork everywhere else too, right?
All over. Germany only introduced mandatory licensing very recently in 2018. Ireland has had it since 2012. Kenya has the Estate Agents Registration Board. It's different everywhere you look.
So the key takeaway here for the listener, you absolutely have to check your local laws. Do not assume the person managing your biggest assets has been vetted by any government body.
Absolutely. In some places, they are highly qualified, licensed professionals. In others, they are just some guy.
So in the absence of consistent government regulation, how do we as consumers or owners know who is good? Who can we trust?
And that takes us to Section 5. Professional standards. The industry, seeing this regulatory vacuum, decided to self-police.
The alphabet soup of accreditations.
The associations, exactly. Since the government won't vouch for people in many places, these nonprofit trade associations do. You have IRM, the Institute of Real Estate Management. It's a big one.
And they offer the CPM designation.
They offer the CPM, the Certified Property Manager. And this is really the gold standard, especially in commercial real estate. To get a CPM, you need years of experience. You have to pass a series of rigorous exams on finance, ethics, maintenance, law, and you have to submit a portfolio of your work for review.
So it's not something you get over a weekend.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's like getting a master's degree in the field. If you see CPM after a manager's name, they know their stuff.
Okay, what about specifically for residential?
You have NRRPM, that's the National Association of Residential Property Managers. They have two key designations, the RMP, which is the Residential Management Professional, and then the higher level MPM, the Master Property Manager.
And for commercial buildings and facilities?
That's where BOMA comes in.
Yeah.
The Building Owners and Managers Association, they offer designations like the RPA or Real Property Administrator, which is very focused on the operational side of things.
Why should a normal person, a renter, or a small-time landlord care about these acronyms?
Because it signals intent and professionalism. If you are hiring a manager in an unregulated market like the UK or New Zealand, or even in a licensed but inconsistent state like Idaho, you should look for these accreditations. It shows that they have voluntarily held themselves to a higher ethical and educational standard. It's a trust signal.
It's the difference between hiring a doctor and hiring a guy with a first aid kit. One has proven their competency to a board of their peers.
That is the perfect analogy.
So we have covered a massive amount of ground here today. We've gone from the high-level philosophy of life cycle management and asset stewardship.
We did.
We dissected the 6 pillars managing people, money, buildings, laws, vacancies, and all the paperwork. We looked at the psychology of the business models, how percentage fees versus flat fees change behavior.
Then the PropTech revolution, which is changing everything.
And finally, this chaotic, almost nonsensical map of global laws and regulations.
It really highlights that this isn't a passive job. It's active, high-stakes, professional management.
So whether you are a tenant trying to get your sink fixed, an aspiring landlord buying your first duplex, or an investor looking at a REIT, understanding this operating system is absolutely crucial. If the OS crashes, the building fails.
And your quality of life or your investment portfolio goes right down with it.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave the listeners with a final thought, something we touched on earlier, the retail percentage lease.
The partnership model from the shopping malls.
Right. In malls, the landlord makes more money when the tenant's business succeeds. In residential, the landlord makes the same amount of money whether the tenant is happy, thriving, or miserable, as long as they pay the rent on the first.
It's a purely transactional relationship in residential housing. There's no shared upside.
So here's the provocative question. What would happen if we applied that retail philosophy to housing? What if a landlord's profit was somehow tied to the tenant's personal success or satisfaction?
How would that even work? You mean like if the tenant's credit score goes up, the landlord gets a bonus, or if a tenant stays for 5 years, their rent automatically decreases as a loyalty reward?
Or what if the landlord, who is often a well-connected business person, actively helped network the tenant to get a better job, and they shared in a tiny fraction of the salary bump for the first year? It sounds crazy, I know.
It sounds completely radical, but it would fundamentally shift the dynamic from adversaries who are always negotiating against each other to partners who are aligned on the same goal.
It would change that tenant relations pillar from human shield to success coach.
That is a fascinating future to imagine, a completely different world.
Something to mull over as you walk through the built world today. Look at the buildings and think about that invisible engine running inside them. That's it for this deep dive into property management. We'll see you next time.